Hello, my name is Mary Fair, and today we'll be discussing the perspective of students. Most often I hear while I'm working in the school district is when a teacher or some other staff labels a child as a problem child. I think we need to think of what else may be going on in this child's life. And the things we need to do better to understand these students are important because these students are going to be the ones that lead us later in life. We know it's an important thing to provide education to all, but first we must know the perspective of these students and why it's an important thing to educate these students. Students from low income struggle with education when they have a lot of other things going on at home or a lot of other things on their mind. How can a child focus when they have all these other things on their mind and going on at home? How can they just sit there for an hour and listen to a teacher when they have all these things going on? And how are they expected to do their homework? And what I see a lot of is I see teachers get angry at students when they don't come with the supplies they need to school. Like, why get angry at a student who forgot a pencil when there could be so much more going on in their life that you have no idea about? All students have something going on in their lives, not necessarily just the low-income ones. But why is it an important thing to help these students? Well, students are our futures. They're the ones that are going to be in our senates and are going to be our House representatives in the future. They're going to be the ones that run our government. They're going to be the ones that are our next voters. They are going to be the ones that are our next working class. They're the ones that are going to take our jobs. They're going to be our next innovators. They're the ones that are going to create the next iPhone or Android or new gadgets or Gizmos. They're going to be our future. Well, we obviously know that these students are our future, but we also need to think about their present. In a low-income home is where it's most often seen, although it's not always just in a low-income home. A lot of students have family responsibilities that other people don't necessarily think of when they see these children or students. Students have jobs where they have to provide for their family. By providing, it could be anything from paying the electricity bill to the mortgage to the grocery bill, and as well as going to school full-time. Students may also have to watch their siblings while their parents work, and some people assume that when a student has to watch their sibling that it's only for a few hours, but sometimes they're watching their younger sibling throughout the whole night so that their parent can work. We also have to think about the family complications that some of these students go through. Some students are dealing with family separations, they're dealing with family grievances, they're dealing with family drama in general, and it can be brought into school, which is the next thing I would like to talk about, is behaviors at school, which would be children back-talking teachers or getting in fights or throwing things at the extreme. And what has been noticed a lot is a lot of these students are bringing said behaviors to school because they don't know how else to act out their feelings. They're upset, they're stressed, they're under a lot of pressure, not only at home but at school. How else are they supposed to act this out? Although I've showed what can cause a student to act out, I'd like to share a story of a student I have talked to this year who has gone through a lot and has dealt with a lot of changes because of the things she's gone through. I had a student come to me and tell me she was being moved to a different foster home. It was definitely really hard because she was succeeding academically and behaviorally at this first home she was at the beginning of the year. However, when she was transitioned to this new home, she was completely heartbroken. She had been at this other foster family for 2 years. She was moved to this other foster home, and her grades plummeted. She got in fights. She acted out. She hated being at school. She didn't want to do anything about it. And it was a completely different switch because of all this stress of moving to a different family and trying to get that attachment to them again, if she even could. And she had also, later, after all this stuff had happened and her grades had began falling, I asked her, if she was all right and if she needed someone to talk to, I was there. So she then told me that the reason why she got separated from her biological family was because she reported her own mother to DFS because of the atrocities that was going on at home. And that really struck a chord with me and made me realize, there's more stuff going on in these students' lives than a lot of people realize. It's just really shocking. And hopefully with the story I just presented to you, that you would be able to better understand why some of these behaviors and these lack of trust occur in students, and why they may seem to be that spoiled brat you may see out in public. But this also brings into why it's important to understand the perspective of students. A lot of students don't necessarily come up to a teacher or another staff member or anybody and tell them what's going on in their lives, and they just make this assumption that the student just doesn't want to listen or pay attention or do their work because they just don't want to do it. And I think that seeing the perspectives that may be occurring in these students' lives shows that we need to make a change, that we need to realize that there's other things going on outside of school, even if we're not able to hear about it. But how can we make our students have a successful education when they have all these issues going on at home? And the best way we can do that is by creating a safe environment, create a loving environment, and create an open environment for these students. Well, we had discussed what can happen and why it's important to understand the perspective of students, as well as think about the changes that we need to make. And although others might not see this as such a dire change, I believe that it is, because seeing someone else's perspective or even putting yourself in someone else's shoes is an important thing to better understand them. I'd like to bring this chart in that I found from mybudget360.com, which shows that although not most people realize it, 1 in 7 Americans live in poverty. And when it's put into a pie chart, it's seen more drastically that that's quite a bit of people when you realize the population and everything else. And I think it's a good thing to better understand someone's perspective, because you never know what's going on in their life.